What is going on, everybody? Back at it again with another YouTube video in the studio for today's game. Not too much of Sixers news over the last 48 hours, but, you know, there's always still something to talk about with this team, considering it's a whole new lineup that we're going to have to experience this season with coaches and just everything, you know, pretty much everything else with this team, except for the two main superstars on this team, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. Everything else is pretty much different. The role players, the coaches, the president of operations, and, you know, the way that they're going to be playing in. The culture isn't there to start the season from what it looks like right now with no fans. So it's definitely going to be a different start for the Sixers, as we usually do have. I've been to the last 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 opening games for the Sixers. I've said it in a couple other videos that the Sixers are my number one team in the city. I love the Sixers. I love basketball, and I always have. And, you know, I do have season tickets with the Sixers currently, and, you know, it's a great investment, especially if you love basketball. I mean, the Sixers are just a great, it's great atmosphere to be in, just like every other Philadelphia sport, but Sixers playoff games are electric, as well as all the other teams are. But for me, Sixers are number one. But this is what this is what I'm going to be talking about in today's video. Is I'm going to be talking about the starting lineup. What will that be come December 22nd? Will it be, you know, A, B, C, D? It could be a surplus of different lineups. I'll give you lineups of what other people and analysts have said, and, you know, I'll give you my take and what I think the opening day roster lineup will be for the Philadelphia 76ers. But before I do get into that, the Sixers did kind of make a move yesterday in bringing back Justin Anderson. He was a part of that 2017 playoff team. He played his role. He was like a nitty-gritty player that got in people's faces, and his most memorable moment for me as a Sixer player was when he got in the face of Dwayne Wade in the playoff game, and they kind of got into a little bit of a fight in Miami. I definitely do remember that because, again, he's just a gritty guy. He just goes out there, and he's a pest. He's annoying, and he's not, you know, the greatest. So when he does do stuff, he's going to make you know he did it. And, you know, he's also one of Joel Embiid's good friends. Will he make the opening day roster? I don't know. I mean, he could, but I'm sure he'll be a two-way player, just like he was last year for the Nets. So, definitely going to keep an eye on him, see if he will do anything come the start of the season. But now to get into today's topic, the Sixers starting lineup. Now, the Sixers, again, as I just said, they have a lot of different ways that they could go with this lineup. Daryl Morey tweeted out earlier today that he's excited to see a lineup with Seth Curry and Danny Green, along with Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid on the floor at the same time. Now, that is definitely a shooter lineup. You know, that's a lineup that if you run the fast break, you're going to get it with Tobias and Simmons, obviously, and you know, you have Seth Curry and Danny Green in opposite corners with Joel Embiid trailing the play. I mean, that's going to be hard to stop. You know, do we have a third star per se? Maybe not, honestly. I do think Tobias Harris is a very good player. I think he would be the best fourth option in the league if necessary. If that was ever an option again in his career, where he has been the best fourth option in the league with Jimmy Butler, Simmons, and Embiid 2 years ago. But I do think Tobias Harris is a good player. I do not think he is a slouch, and I do think he is criminally underrated by some fans here in Philadelphia. You know, I've heard a lot of crazy comparisons to Tobias Harris, and, you know, I think he's a good player. I think he's a borderline all-star that can get you buckets, isolation, three-pointers. He can score in a surplus of ways. And, you know, he can also dribble the ball a little bit. So, Tobias Harris is definitely a solid player to have. Is he again, is he a player that's going to be a difference maker in a playoff series? Maybe not, but he's definitely a good player to have on this team, especially from where I think that the Sixers are going, and that is, we're going to see how things play out. If there's moves to be made during the season, then they will be made. But currently, I just think we're going to fill out the rest of the roster with Daryl Morey signing a bunch of good, high shooting percentage players, especially from that three-point line. As we all know, he does love getting these three-point players that can get you buckets. And, that's what I love to see. I mean, we all know Ben Simmons assisted on like 300-something threes last season. He was the number one player in the league at that. And, the biggest flaw with the Sixers was we don't have shooting. And we still found a way, and Ben Simmons still found a way to get 300-something assists off of three-pointers. So that's definitely something to really look at what Morey is trying to do. I definitely think he's trying to build this team around both guys, Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. I mean, as a normal person would when you have two young, talented players on the same team, just kind of fall in your lap, as Daryl Morey and Doc Rivers have now been granted. I mean, they have both been granted the wish of two young players in this league that could be superstar potential, that could be all-time talent. So, when you throw out a lineup like Danny Green, Seth Curry, Tobias, Simmons, and Embiid, that's going to be a high-scoring lineup out there. You can also go big. You could go Dwight Howard at the 4 and Matisse or Danny Green at the 2. I have seen that lineup from Stephen A. Smith in First Take. That's what they think the Sixers lineup's going to be. Do you start Matisse Thybulle or Tyrese Maxey? I would stay away from Maxey. I would definitely bring him off the bench. Do think he could be a very good bench player for the Sixers during his rookie contract at least. But, he could be a very good player in this league one day. He has the potential to really be something special in this league, coming from Kentucky with John Calipari. He's a good player, and I'm definitely excited to see him. I like the pick at 21, but, the lineup is up in the air right now. I do think Seth Curry or Danny Green start. I do not think they start together first day, but I do think one of them starts. I think Seth plays the 2 guard, obviously, and then you have some mixing and matching to do. I mean, do we go out and do we sign a player that could play the 4? Do we go out and sign a player that could play the 3 and move Tobias to the 4? There's still some solid players out there that the Sixers could definitely look into getting. I mean, there's not a ton, but there is some. And, we had Al Horford last year, and we really were satisfied with that for a majority of the season with him as our power forward. Now, you don't need a guy with as big as a name as Al Horford to produce what Al Horford produced for the Sixers last season. I mean, Al Horford is he's a good player, but he took a huge step back last year, and the fact that we could just get rid of that contract was fine by me. But, the lineup is tough right now. It really is. I think, honestly, Danny Green starts over Seth Curry more for the fact that he's a veteran player. I could be wrong. I could definitely see Seth Curry starting. Don't get me wrong. I mean, definitely do not get me wrong. I could definitely see Seth Curry starting opening day at the 2 guard. But that 3 guard that 3 or 4 position is definitely, up in the air. Tobias is going to play one or the other. So then it's going to come down to, do we get a 4 or do we get a 3? Or do we start Matisse Thybulle to start off the regular season? Now, I could definitely see that. Do I think Matisse Thybulle is ready? I think he's good. I think he could hold himself. I think he could hold his own in a starting lineup. Would I prefer him to come off the bench? Yes. I definitely would like our younger players, Ferguson, Maxey, Matisse. I would definitely prefer them to come off the bench one at a time, more for the fact that they are all pretty athletic guys, and Joel Embiid is usually the first person off the floor, so that's where I think Dwight Howard comes into play, and I think you can make a double substitution with Danny Green or Seth Curry, and then Dwight Howard and Joel Embiid. Probably the first substitution, and then the second substitution, I mean, you're going to have guys like Matisse Thybulle. Matisse was the sixth man last year. He was the first guy off the bench every game because, we had Al Horford, but now we don't. So I'm definitely curious to see who the 3 spot is going to be. Who is going to be the small forward to start the season? Is it going to be Tobias Harris? Is it going to be Danny Green? Is it going to be Matisse Thybulle? It could be a surplus of players, and I'm definitely excited. But I think to start the season, the Sixers and Doc Rivers go Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Matisse, Tobias, Embiid. That's what I'm going to go with. This is just a prediction. I don't have any insight on the Sixers. Obviously, I just do YouTube. But I would not be opposed to that lineup. I definitely would not be upset with that lineup. And, we'll just have to see from there. But Sixers season starts soon, and I cannot wait because the Eagles and the Phillies, I don't even want to talk about them. I could have easily made a couple of videos on those 2 guys today, but I just don't want to get myself angry. So I think tomorrow I will be coming out with a Phillies video and possibly an Eagles video to go into Monday with. But, we'll just have to see what happens. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. Let me know your starting lineup prediction down below in the comment section. Thank you all so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And I am out. Peace.